So apparently Roger was just a simp. Hello, how's it going everyone? This week we have another great chapter of One Piece. But before we begin, make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Now without further ado, let's get right into it. First of course we have the color spread, where we see the monster trio of Luffy's crew alongside the monster trio of Roger's crew. And Nami is also there I guess, as well as the other straw hats that are in Luffy's back for some reason. And with that, let's get into the main chapter. We start off this week's chapter with a section covering the Kuja pirates from 48 years ago, who were apparently being treated as a group of idols that roamed the seas. In this part of the chapter, we get to see a young Gloriosa, or Granny Neon as she is also known, as well as a young Shaki, along with an introduction to Tritoma, who was the Empress of Amazon Lily before Boa. And we also find out that while Gloriosa was really popular back in the day, her popularity paled in comparison to her first mate Shaki. And it was to the point where even though Gloriosa was actually in love with Roger, even he completely ignored her in favor of Shaki. And this is where we find out that Roger was apparently a complete simp for Shaki. And this also applied to the rest of his crewmates. Well, everyone except for Rayleigh, who Shaki was apparently already interested in at this point. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I personally did not have Roger getting cucked by Rayleigh on my 2025 bingo card. But here we are, I guess. And after which, we get a scene of Roger and Garp fighting, or clashing at least, before we cut back to the Kuja pirates, where we see the moment that Gloriosa fell victim to the love sickness that she has mentioned in the past with Boa. And apparently the target of her love sickness was actually Roger. And finally we end this part of the chapter with Shaki taking over as the Empress of Amazon Lily, as well as a narration telling us that the Kuja pirates apparently played a big role in the story of this era. After which we cut over to a small 2-page part where we cut back to Elbaf. And in this part, we also find out that apparently Ida was actually very loving towards Loki. But Loki just assumed that she was trying to get close to him so that she could become the queen and live in the castle. Ida also suggests that Loki should live with her and Hyrudin, which of course both Loki and Hyrudin reject immediately. And in this part, we also find out that apparently Loki tried to set out to sea on numerous occasions in order to copy Rocks. And apparently, every time Rocks would visit Elbaf to try and recruit Harold, Loki would try to convince Rocks to let him join his crew. But of course, Rocks would reject him every time. And finally, we end this part of the chapter with Loki declaring that he hates everybody on Elbaf. And after that, we cut over to the pirate island for the final part of the chapter, where we see the mobster Kyo showing up on the island. And apparently this man is also the future Silver Axe. And in this part of the chapter, we also find out that apparently the skull-shaped rock on the pirate island was originally shaped like a fish until Rocks decided to blow some holes into it so that he could have a good view of the entire island. And after that, we get some more introductions to new members of Rocks' crew that I guess joined the crew during the 4-year time skip that was mentioned in the last chapter. These new members being Captain John, Charlotte Linlin, of course the future Big Mom herself, Streusen, the Fishman Barbell, and of course the one and only Kaido. And in this part we also find out that apparently there are 2 devil fruits that Rocks is looking for. And one of them is most likely found on Elbaf, and its power will only truly be unlocked if Harold eats it. I guess this is the legendary devil fruit that was mentioned at the beginning of the Elbaf arc, that allegedly Loki killed Harold in order to obtain. And we find out that the Rocks pirates are also looking for the Galila, which was the legendary band of giant shipwrights that was mentioned in the last chapter, which as we know are most likely the giants that were frozen on Punk Hazard. Of course the Rocks pirates are not aware of that. And here we also find out that apparently one of the reasons Rocks wants Harold to join their crew is so that they can get the Galila to listen to them, since of course Harold is the king of Elbaf. And here we get a scene of Kaido suggesting that Rocks could just overpower the Galila and force them to follow him, and that he could also do the same thing with Harold. But interestingly, this causes Rocks to get angry at Kaido, and he tells him that Harold is his pal, and that if Kaido brings up making Harold obey with force one more time, then he will get rid of him first. After which we get a spread of the Rocks pirates in their entirety, as well as a declaration from Rocks to his crew that Elbaf is the key to take down the Holy Land, and that if they don't trust him, they should just get lost, and that it is up to them whether or not they decide to follow him on the day of the mission, as he calls it, and that if they have got the stones for it, then they should stick around with him for a bit, and he will show them the peak of the world. And that's how the chapter ends. All in all, this was a great chapter of One Piece, where we got some interesting lore about the previous empresses of Amazon Lily, such as a glimpse into the younger selves of Gloriosa and Shaki, as well as an introduction to Tritoma. And also we found out that apparently Roger was a massive simp for Shaki, and also seemingly got cucked by Rayleigh. And we also found out that apparently Gloriosa was in love with Roger, and he was actually the target of her love sickness. And we also got to see a clash between a young Roger and Garp, as well as some narration telling us that the Kuja pirates apparently played a massive role in the story of Rox's era. And also we found out that apparently Ida was always very loving towards Loki, but of course Loki just assumed that she had ill intentions. And we also found out that Loki apparently tried to go out into sea on numerous occasions in order to emulate Rox, and apparently also asked Rox to join his crew several times, and not just on the one occasion that we saw in that one flashback several chapters ago. And finally, we found out just how the Skull Rock on the pirate island was formed, as well as the fact that apparently there were 2 devil fruits in the world that Rox really wanted to get his hands on, and one of them was actually the legendary devil fruit that is passed down in the lineage of the Elbaf royal family, which was mentioned towards the beginning of this arc. And we also find out that apparently the Rox pirates were looking for the Galila, the legendary band of giant shipwrights that were mentioned in the last chapter. And we also got a confirmation that Rox actually considers Harold to be his friend, and is not just trying to take advantage of him. And finally, we get a full spread of Rox's entire crew, as well as a declaration from him that apparently Elbaf is the key to take down the Holy Land. And with that, I am really looking forward to the next chapter. So I guess I will see you whenever that comes out. Once again, make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Bye bye.